Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 406. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge, and I'm joined as always by co-host Jim. Halle Berry is my muse. So says the one sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of I almost called you the Wensei.
I know.
The Wensei of the whatnot.
How's it going, eh?
We are on this episode joined by longtime friend of the show, Art Lyon, as we make it through our third bad DC movie to talk about Catwoman. And Jim, this one actually sort of rests on you because you brought it up on the show ages ago. So we finally got a chance to talk about this one. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the DCinfinite.com podcast partnership. I want to give a quick shout out and thank everyone for their patience this week. I know we were a couple days late, and where that's coming from, I should probably explain. My father has been going through, for the past number of months, a cancer battle, and for a while he was keeping that to himself, so I didn't really want to say too much on the podcast about it, and if I did, it was quickly in passing. I didn't really elaborate. But a number of my friends who listen to this show have found out just through conversations we've had and been very supportive, and this audience in general. Doing this podcast has been a very, and continues to be a very therapeutic thing for me, so thank you for your patience, understanding, and being here for us. So over the next few months, likely I'm going to have to do that every so often where, it's just going to be the last minute. I might have to delay something a day or two here or there. I will always post on the website like I've been doing, just some communication. My goal is going to be to keep the show for a month. I really like delivering that kind of content. So, it's almost like we're delivering weekly episodes, but from time to time there might need to be 8 or 9 days between podcasts, and that's really where it comes from. So I just want to thank everyone for their support and friendship during this time. Prayers and positive thoughts are always welcome. I'm a big believer in, positive vibes. If you haven't got that from this show by now, that's kind of how I'm wired. So sending those his way would certainly be appreciated. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. I'm really enjoying these variants, and one of the cool things that DCB Service is doing right now, they're taking those DC Lego variant covers, and they're bundling them together at a special discount. It's 45% off. You can get the whole grouping, which would be regularly $74.78, for $41.12. That's 45% off. I'm a fan of that because a lot of times if you see like a bundle series that you really enjoy and you'd like to get all of them, it's great to know that you can order them in one nice batch and you're going to get them all together at a discount because we're all on a tight budget, and that 45% off all of a sudden makes it a lot more attainable if you're looking for those. So I want to thank DCBService.com for providing those discounts. Remember, they're a digital partner. If you're doing Comixology or My Digital Comics, make sure to link your accounts. 5% of those purchases goes towards your DCB Service order, and you're helping out a show sponsor, so you're getting something back, and it doesn't cost you anything more. Over at InStockTrades.com, they just moved to Memphis, Tennessee, their brand new location. And because of that, they're upping their deals of the week. They used to do 5 regular books and 1 kid's book to 10 regular books and 2 kids' books. And they have so many, like for example, they've got Batman Gordon of Gotham. It's 50% off. It's a $19.99 trade. That's $9.99. They've got the Flash Omnibus hardcover. That's a $99 book. It's a 50% off special, only $49.99. Forever Evil, Rogue's Rebellion, $16.99, 50% off, only $8.49. So that's InStockTrades.com. They have many, many really cool discounts there. Do yourself a favor and head over to their website and check out the deals that you can save. Remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. So that's InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the Academy Award-winning Catwoman starring Cleveland's own Halle Berry. So, if you haven't seen this masterpiece of cinematography, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Wow. You actually, did you say all that with a straight face? Or you
I started laughing because I knew what was coming.
That's really funny. Let's talk Catwoman.
Raging Bullets podcast. You like comics, you like free, you like us.
Joining us again for the third movie. It's our triple threat is a longtime friend of the show, Art Lyon, and welcome back, Art, to talk about Catwoman.
How we doing?
Welcome back is kind of...
We're still alive.
Yeah. We made it through 3 of them. A little aside before we actually kick into talking about this movie. One of our listeners sent us in a voicemail talking about the fact that, well, you guys mentioned all these bad DC films, and how did you guys forget Steel? Shaq.
Oh, man. I haven't seen that.
I haven't either. So...
Well, maybe we need to do that.
I think we'll have to... you in for that?
Sure.
Okay, we'll have to schedule a time to do a follow-up because I have not seen that either. So this is one
How
that
could you guys not have seen that movie? I have seen it, and
are you? Wait, Jim. Let us ask you this:
when did that come out?
Mm-hmm.
No idea. I do not recall, but I did see it in the movie theater.
Really?
Yes.
1997.
Wow. So it predates
the movie theater. I don't remember why I saw it in the theater. But it was one of those things where I think because it was a DC movie. Oh, let's see what they are. Oh my God!
It's one of those movies, a lot like Catwoman, which I chose not to see because it just looked bad, and I heard bad things about it. So I said, why bother? When
Sean and I first started talking about this, the 3 movies, it did pop in my head. But it was one of those things where we'd always talked about Catwoman and then having a Batman and a Superman movie, so that's why I didn't throw it out there. But yeah, it's one of it definitely. If we wanted to do a Fatal 4-Way, this movie would fit in with this patch very easily.
I think so. I'm almost embarrassed that we didn't think of it earlier.
Well, here's the thing: we don't have a frame of reference, Art. Neither of us saw it.
It's like I assume it's bad, but maybe it's not so bad. I don't know.
Well,
I will say, this: it is probably the best Shaquille O'Neal movie I have ever seen.
How many Shaquille O'Neal movies have you seen?
I've seen 2 movies,
Okay.
and he's I think done 2 movies. So he's been in 3, but I've seen 2 of the 3, and Steel is the best of the ones I've seen.
What was his other?
Shazam or Alakazam, or so he was a genie, and oh my God, that was.
What was the third one?
And the third one was an actual legitimate basketball one.
Okay.
Nick Nolte.
Oh yeah, that rings a bell.
I can't think of the name of it, but that was a legitimate, real, actually good movie, and it's the only one I didn't see. I didn't see the good one. I saw the other 2.
The terrible one. Oh, well.
Do you realize we could do his entire filmography? I mean, relatively easily. It's really funny when he gets, well, it's 3 films.
The Shaquille O'Neal filmography.
All right, well, speaking of bad movies, we're on Catwoman. This is our 3rd film of our series of doing this. And we're going to actually do this a little bit differently. We're going to talk real quick just about our general overview, but then we're going to start the film. So if you want to follow along with us, we'll tell you when we're starting the movie. What we're going to do is we're going to just have it running in the background, and we're not going to be beholden to it, but we thought it'd be kind of fun just because Art and I were doing that last time anyway, but to sort of try to sync up on some level. So that way, if you want to watch along with us as we talk through it.
We have to choose like a start point, like right now, mine is queued to the beginning of the Warner Brothers logo.
That's where mine is. So we'll make that.
Okay. Well, perfect then.
So what I'd like to talk about, and Art, we'll start with you. General thoughts on this movie. Where were you at experience-wise?
I did not see this when it came out. And, of course, now I have to remember what year it came out. It seems like it came out 2003 or something.
2004.
2004. Okay. Yeah. It was after, the first 2 Spider-Man movies. I can't remember when the third one of that came out, but it was after the X-Men movies and the Spider-Man movies had begun, and the Harry Potter and the Matrix and the Lord of the Rings movies. I think we had reached a point as fans of that kind of stuff that we were expecting another good one. And I saw the trailers for this, and I heard word of mouth, and I didn't bother. And so I had not seen this until, a couple months ago. In general, I would say it's not as bad as I expected. It reads to me like a made-for-TV movie that you might catch on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Ooh, it's a good. That's a good comparison.
Yeah. So it's not great. It's kind of bad, but it's not awful. It's not as awful as I expected.
Jim?
Well, This is another one I saw in the movie theater, and I remember seeing it for simple reason because it was Halle Berry, and I saw an image of her in the Catwoman costume. I was like, oh, okay, I'm in. And that's the sole reason I saw it. I will fully admit that. But it's one of those movies where I say, of the three we've done, for me, this is the best and worst. This is the best in that it was probably the best of the movies made because it still had some campy moments, but it had a lot less than everything else, mostly because it was made later.
That's a good point.
But it's the worst because it's so completely threw aside the Catwoman history and just, what the actual comic book had. And they just took all that and threw it out. And I was like, what are you doing? You had this great backstory and this is completely not it. And, it was something that I was like, if you can get your head around that and just look at this is like Earth 17 or whatever Earth you want to call it. This is an Elseworld story. It's not a bad story, and Halle Berry is a very talented actress. So there is some cool acting moments on her part, as well as there's a couple, some of the supporting cast have a couple really nice scenes in it. So I've seen this thing a couple times now, so there's definitely scenes that I like more than others, but all in all, for me, this right here was the least painful and probably the best of the three.
It's funny when you say Elseworlds, Jim, because I watched this last night, and I figured I'd like to give it one more viewing because I hadn't seen it. We had talked about doing all three of them in one sitting, and we made the decision to put this one aside. I wanted to watch it again so that way I had it fresh in my head for this conversation. As I was watching it last night, my wife sat down and started watching it with me. I didn't tell her to. Normally when I'm watching comic book related movies or things like that, she'll watch for a little bit and walk away. She ended up watching the whole rest of the thing with me. And she got pulled into the whole relationship thing and everything that was going on into it. And it just led me to believe she doesn't have the baggage of, my issue right from the get-go. And I actually fall similar to Art in that one. I didn't want to see it in the theater. I'm a Batman junkie. And when I saw that, it was so clearly not going to be anything to do with Catwoman as we know her in the comics, that really turned me off from going to see it in the theater. Watching it last night, I don't know what it was and what the difference was. I watched it more open-minded, and I think I largely fall where the two of you are in this. And when you were saying about it being a good sci-fi channel, made-for-TV movie, I'm like, all right, I'm into that. That's exactly what it is. It's not, not theater caliber. If I had watched it with that lens, and if there was a different title, I probably would be in a very different place with this film because it bugs me when you get to the end of the credits and it says, featuring the characters created by Bob Kane. So, I think we're at a good point right now to start up the movie, seeing as we're there, and just kind of start talking through, because we got the opening credits to talk through, and probably we can do a little bit of casual discussion as we talk through the credits. And it really is a long opening credits.
We should probably do a countdown.
Let's do a 3, 2, 1, play.
Oh, it's lovely music as time goes by. You were talking about the multiverse thing, which actually, it's weird because I was having a conversation a couple days ago with a friend of mine about the DC movies, the current spate of the DC movies, and how one of the options DC has is, just take advantage of the multiverse and not be afraid to have movies which don't take place in the same universe.
I think you need to declare that. Because here's the funny part is I'm watching these opening credits. I like the history aspect of the opening credits. It was funny how I'm into that whole bit. I'm into games like Assassin's Creed and stuff like that because of their historical background. I've always liked role-playing games because a lot of times your role-playing games will give you a sense of large, vast time spans of history within the world that you're playing the game in. This gives me that in the opening credits. I like that there's this history of Catwomen that were out there. I don't have a problem with any of that.
No, I think it actually does a really good job of, it takes advantage of the credits and it tells part of the story or lays out some groundwork. And I think that's actually really smart. So.
Yeah, but it's funny because when you first see it, you have no idea what's going on. It's only because we know the story, we know about the Catwoman, we know about the Mao, we know all of this stuff that's going to play out later on in the movie, that these opening credits, like, oh, that's kind of neat how they put that in there. But the first time you're watching it, you're just going and they're going on, and you're looking for clues as to, okay, what's this about? Wait, what? Okay, huh? And and I think, for me personally, I like it better when they just hit right off the bat and you start, the movie jumps right in. It's just
you prefer the in media res.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think the opening credits, though, would have a different tone for you, Jim, if it wasn't Catwoman? Like, because the credits are clearly crafted to be like a lead into the premise of the movie. And I do think they work under that lens where it's confusing if you're like, wait a minute, this is a Catwoman movie, right? What's going on here? I do think it watches very differently if you don't know, if you don't have that Catwoman label on it. Maybe you think I'm wrong. I don't know.
It's just a personal preference with me on movies in general.
Oh.
I like it to start off a hard hitting hammer. Just bam, right out the box, you get something up and going. I do not, and this is any of the movies. I don't like long lead-ins. I like it going right in, get into the movie, because for me, I look at this and I see however number of minutes this opening is, like that could have been a whole nother part of a DVD that got cut that's in there.
That's the
How do you feel about the opening of the first Lord of the Rings movie? Did that work for you? They have that long narration and scenes with all that stuff.
Narration is different. If there's the narration going on, I don't mind that, because that's part of the story, and that's like you think about Star Wars, where it opens done a long time ago. I thought that was cool. I still do.
Yep.
Or oratory narration and just that I'm okay with.
See, I liked the opening a great deal. I actually thought that part was pretty cool, especially in later viewings, the opening. But you're right, Jim, there's a different lens in the later viewings because the
later
premise
viewings,
of the story.
It was good. And later viewings, I'll completely go along with that. But
she's talking. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. There was some narration there about something and dying and something.
Well, yeah, she was talking about her life, how she wasn't really alive, and that type of thing, and until she died, and then my life really began. It was really the premise. How this is, I like that theme of this film. How we've got this person who's kind of in the background. She's like living a life that hasn't quite been fulfilled. Like she's this designer who she really wanted to have her design showcased, and yet she's working for this cosmetic company doing ads. So she really wants to be working in fashion. Instead, she's promoting somebody else's cosmetic line. It's totally not living up to her potential. She's almost shackled, which that premise is actually really cool.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde approach. Actually, that's one of the things I like about this movie is the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde approach. That she doesn't remember stuff. I think that's actually kind of cool. I mean, it's a big change from the character in the comics. I was struck by how much this opening part with the main character and how she gets her powers, how much it's like Batman Returns, the Catwoman origin in Batman Returns. You've got this kind of dowdy woman who's working a job, has a mean boss, she goes home and she's alone, and there's like a lot of parallels there.
Yeah, I think it's part of the problem with this film. It suffers an identity crisis. Like it's trying to be this interesting original movie. And then it seems like at certain points in time, it's trying to make a connection with the Catwoman concept. And it's done very rarely in the film. It's one of the things that I have an issue with it being called Catwoman. It's so divorced from the concept of DC's Catwoman that they could have tied it to, they could have called it witches or, because they showed that part in the beginning. And honestly, I think this film probably would be so much better for embracing the original story that's being told here than trying to connect itself
that's a good point.
Horribly wrong to a concept that it's afraid to indulge.
It kind of begs the question, like, why did they do it? Like, why did they feel the need to alter things as much as they did? I wonder if in the attempt to make her have her own movie, like they felt that they had to change it up. I don't know.
And the funny thing with her being this bad girl character, at the time in 2004, that was a pretty hot seller. I mean, if you did that right, if you're trying to appeal to the comic book audience, if you had just made her original character, she probably could have been, like one of the indie comics that was doing this at the time. I mean, I think, there was room for her to to actually advance into something else. Because I don't mind the premise of the villains in this with the Beoline and that whole thing. And, that's all right. It's so divorced from being Selena Kyle.
It's interesting. You mentioned this whole story with the agency and the makeup and this stuff. There's a theme in this movie about, you were talking earlier about how your wife watched a bunch of it with you, Sean, and I kind of wish I had watched this with my family rather than by myself, because there's an interesting theme in this movie about the roles which women are forced into. It's actually pretty interesting. It doesn't play out as well as it could, but it's there.
She came in about 25 minutes in. I was already watching it.
Okay.
And she sat down. It was one of those things where, you kind of walk by and you see something and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Let me watch that. After she was sitting there for about a good 20 minutes, I turned to her and said, if you want me to pause this, I can go watch it in the other room, because, I had it on my Apple TV, so I was like, oh, I could pause it and watch it elsewhere. And she's like, no, I'm actually into this, which she doesn't hesitate. She doesn't pull any punches when it's like I'm watching something, and she doesn't pull any punches and go, she didn't. I do think the fact that she doesn't have the baggage I do really did help with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that my wife always has interesting outsider insights into this kind of stuff. So I would like to watch it with her sometime. I'm just not sure if I want to sit through it.
When she's painting here in her apartment, and we got the neighbor across the way, just the environment that she's living in, you get this sense of her longing for something more. Like, the neighbor that she lives across obviously makes this environment almost unlivable. I connected with her painting because that goes back to her whole design thing. But then this bit with the cat, where the cat's hanging over there and she's going out selflessly. We needed this here because we were just getting to the point where she's sympathetic. But now I'm like, all right, she's actually like this nice person, because I'm sorry, I love animals. There's no way I'm attempting this.
I'm not climbing out up there to get that cat. It got up there on its own. It can get down on its own just as easily. Good luck. It's got 9 lives. I only got 1.
Mm-hmm. Well, this just makes her look dumb, kind of. It's like there comes a point where, I don't know. There's one thing I will say about this movie as a compliment is that I think it's a good-looking movie. I think it's well directed. I think it's edited well. I think the cinematography is good. The production design is good, I think. I mean, well, not the production design, but just it looks good. I like the way it's directed and edited and the camera work.
Oh, definitely. Definitely some cool visual stuff. And just, I really like Halle Berry's physical acting throughout all this, whether it was the timid and shy patience, every so often when you see her walking, she trips and stumbles. She does a great pratfall that I was like, man, that looks realistic and looks real. I'm like, that is awesome. So you get these physical elements that I really enjoy.
Benjamin Bratt as Tom Lone, I think, is really, really good in this. Because he does this good job of playing the tentative guy, where, he's really attracted to her because there's, it's Halle Berry. He plays that off well. But there's also, she's very eccentric. There's this kind of, you're interested and intrigued by her, but not really sure if you should be. Right. And he plays that very, very well in this. I could see seeing... Yeah, but yet... normal enough that you're drawn to her.
He plays a great cop. He really has the good look for a cop, and there's some actors who can pull it off well. I think I like him in this type of role, where he is the guy who kicks in the door and catches the woman, and then he's just this absolute nice guy.
Well, there's the problem I have with him. I think all of that that you guys have said is true. The problem I have with him is that he's not at the star level that Halle Berry is, and so he seems out of place in that regard. Usually when you have a romantic relationship, usually your actors are, the male and the female are, roughly at the same level in terms of star power.
I thought he was very good in the role, though, but I think part of the problem is this movie was clearly the focus was meant to be Sharon Stone and Halle Berry.
Yeah, why is Sharon Stone in this movie? Why did she agree to this movie? I'd love to know how that happened.
You know what? It's actually in a way, it's a good villain role for her. And I like
actually. No,
how they
right.
brought her. You know, you initially make it look like the husband's going to be this nasty villain because he's this nasty person, but then you start seeing, no, she's really the evil force behind everything nasty, everything negative. She's behind it. He's just the stooge. And I love just that night. That was a really cool dichotomy and just a nice way they did it. I can see why she would go into it, but there's a couple scenes from her. I'm like, you're a better actress than this. Come on.
I realized one of the main weaknesses of this movie is the script. I think the script is like a B-movie script.
Yes.
The actual dialogue. It's the kind of dialogue which is hard for an actor to read well because it's just not good.
Yeah, this is part of the problem with this is like there's sequences with her like the age thing, you know, where she's being replaced by this younger model who's coming in. Right. I quite like that because I think we all hit that stage in our lives where you start to see that, like, okay, my place, my opportunity to be in that place is slowly dwindling away. That happens. And you learn how to either evolve and become something more in, you know, that next phase of your life, or you become like her and become bitter and trapped and never really learn how to embrace the next path that you go on,
or become a supervillain. You know,
yeah,
exactly.
Later on, someone will have to explain to me exactly how she gets. There's like a plot line here I don't understand about, like, what exactly the cosmetics do and why they do it and why she gets powers from it. I don't completely. I wasn't like making the connection.
We'll have to talk about that when we get to the point of the chemical, because I think we'd have a deep discussion. What do you think about Halle Berry's friends? Like,
I absolutely love this.
I like the friend,
Sally,
the brunette. Yeah, Sally.
Yeah.
I think that she's an actress I've seen elsewhere, and she's really good. I think that she's well cast as the amusing and supportive friend.
She was on Mad TV, and she was really good on it.
Okay.
Okay, that's where I've seen. I was trying to place where I've seen her from. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, she made a transition into film. And the sad part is, when you see her in this, she could be in buddy comedies like this and pull it off. This film, unfortunately, she does it so well that it's sad to see her, because she was one of the strengths. And the other guy, the guy that's the friend over there too, like the bullpen of her work, I actually quite liked. I'm like, there's elements of this that are really good, and there's things when we get to it that I'm going to explain that are horribly wrong. But this sequence is really charming.
It actually works. The set design here, it looks like, you know, like an artsy design office space. Mm-hmm. You know, it actually looks like a place where people work. It's not like your standard office-looking place, but it's a place that's all about design, and so it kind of makes sense.
This sequence where things are going super fast is probably... I don't have a problem with this, so let me clarify that. But this is what I think are some of the problems with the film. There are points where it tries to be too stylized,
yes,
and they don't work, particularly when we start getting some of the animation elements in the film.
Yeah.
It's where, like, they take stuff that I was really enjoying, and it gets derailed on a horrible end.
Yeah, it strikes me as a movie that was the first movie directed by a guy used to making music videos.
Yeah.
Haven't done any research on the director, but I would bet money on that.
They were going for the montage, but they didn't want montage, so they sped it up. And I don't know. For me, it's funny because I didn't like that scene, but for the part I really didn't like was the midnight deadline that the boss gave her. Have those new things printed by midnight. Well, in the business world, you don't have a midnight deadline because no one's there at midnight. It's end of day. So,
Jim, he's eccentric and crazy.
Yeah, I know. And he wouldn't have her at... Now, the other thing I'm wondering is, why is she at this factory at midnight? If she was already in the office building, the boss would have been a couple floors above her. Why did she have to physically leave, go across town to a very nasty part of town, and then break into a factory?
Jim,
why not
getting
stay
ready
in the office building where the offices are located?
No. Do you not understand, Jim? They're getting ready to unveil Bioline.
Because she read the script, Jim. That's why.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Again,
script says, I go in here.
again, problems with the script writing.
Right. Like, it had to happen, so let's get her over there.
Yeah, this does not make any sense at all. This is really a premise for how do we get her in a pipe and flush her.
Which I got to comment on the flushing when we get to it, but I did like though that the chemical is, they're showing the scarring, they're doing the headaches, which is what her friend Sally's getting, and eventually Halle Berry connects the two and realizes that's what it is, and so there was some cool parts of this that just the reasoning she's there is wrong for me.
Okay, can we talk about Bialine right now? Because Art's asking some good questions. And here's my question. If that scarring happens, is that when you... I'm not clear on this.
That's when you stop using it.
Okay.
That's when the scarring happens.
Oh, okay.
As long as you keep using it, you're fine. And then your body absorbs it, and that's why she got the hardened skin and all that stuff.
Okay.
It's because she kept using it. When you stop, that's the side effects of stopping. Plus, it's addictive. So it was a whole.
Then why did Sharon Stone get like superpowers? Because she used it for a long time.
Yeah, because she's been using it the whole time,
Okay.
and so she's absorbed so much into her that it mutated the flesh.
So
Right,
she's basically sort of indestructible.
Sort of.
Yeah.
She's nearly invulnerable. She's not invulnerable, but she's nearly.
Spoilers. The main problem initially with this movie is that it is impossible or almost impossible to make Halle Berry look frumpy because she's just too darn pretty.
Yes.
Halle Berry is a lovely, lovely woman. You can't make her look like a normal-looking person. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't go that route with the glasses and all that to try to make her look quote-unquote ugly, because that'd be impossible. So instead, they went with clumsy, little bit eccentric.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's actually a smart
I like
move.
that choice of them using that with her.
No, that's a good point.
She does a good job of trying to make the duality work.
Yeah.
And as much as I wanted to hate this movie because it's not Selena Kyle, and we've got Julie Newmar, Eartha Kitt, Michelle Pfeiffer, the most recent, The Dark Knight. We had
Anne Hathaway.
Yeah, we had some really great portrayals of Catwoman. I don't put her in that group, not because she did a horrible job here, because it's not that character.
I was going to say, I think that Halle Berry is one of those actors who is great in the right hands, in the hands of the right director, and in the hands of not so great director. I think that she isn't getting enough help, kind of. Mm-hmm. I think that she's that kind of actor. Some actors are good in everything because they're just great. I think that she's an actor who needs a good director to really bring out her strengths. I think that she's a really good physical actress in terms, like you were talking about, Jim, with the pratfalls and the clumsiness, and then later on when she's in the cat persona, I think that she's a pretty good physical actress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where we start to have a real issue, though, because you're right on everything that you're saying about her physical prowess. So that's going to leave me some questions a little later on. Why bother using animation? There's certain sequences where they go to this animated thing that, is horribly broken.
Yes,
And
I know what you're talking about.
when she's in that persona of the cat, and it's her physically doing the physical acting, it's really good.
It's good, yeah.
But then the animation comes in, which we're seeing here with the cats. You start to see some of that animation coming with our friend the cat that's helping her out.
Midnight.
Yeah, Midnight. Part of the problem there is, I think Midnight's animation's cool. I think it's really well done. But I have trouble with it because some of the worst sequences in this movie have to do with the animation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they probably didn't have enough money because at this point, in terms of movie history, we've already had the CGI Gollum, right? And the standard had been raised, and this movie's not there. Yeah, it's not at that level, and it mostly comes down to money.
Oh, big time.
What do you think about the resurrection story? Like her coming back to life and having this cat life thing happen to her. Do you guys like that premise?
It bothers me because it's like in Batman Returns, it's this thing that just kind of happens, and there's no real explanation of why, except that she was nice to cats, I guess. And so the cats all regenerate her?
Well, Midnight chose
it's,
her.
It's just very okay. But if we had been told more about Midnight, like maybe I can't imagine what. It's the same problem I had in Batman Returns. The cats resurrect her because that's what they do in the script.
Well, that's the whole. When she visits the cat lady later on, or the second time she visits the cat lady, and she learns who she is, that's when.
Oh, that's right. We do get more later.
We get a little bit more. It's like, that's what the Maus do. They're these mystic cats, and because of who she is, that's why Midnight initially appeared and did the whole thing with going on the ledge to see what kind of person she was. She risked her life to save a cat.
Now, it's not the cats that do it, though. It's Midnight. The other cats just happen to be there, and maybe they're brought in because of cats. But Midnight's the catalyst. He is the pure catalyst of this.
Okay.
Now, I do want to know, how did the bad guys know which button to push to flush her down the pipe?
Because they're bad guys, man. They know that stuff.
Have they done it before?
Oh, yeah. Yes, many times.
Probably, maybe.
Many times they have met an errand person at the factory who they had to kill.
Exactly.
Let me write this down. Jim wants a prequel to Catwoman.
You know what? I would actually like that.
Wow.
Hey, as I said, I liked the movie, kind of.
Here's some of that CGI. I think there's a little bit there. Anyway, I think that they actually do a good job here of making her look, filthy and not looking glamorous, which she can't help but look glamorous. But here they've got stuff all over her face, and it actually kind of works. She still
looks good, though. That's
right. She still looks good, but she looks like a person, just like a normal person.
Smeared with garbage on her face, she's still Sally Berry, and she still looks good.
I actually liked the stuff of her waking up in weird places, that are more cat-like. Just finding the little perch to lay down on and things like that.
Right. Again, there's this. I really like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing. I kind of wish they had maybe done more with that.
You know what the sad part is? I like that too, and I know where you're going with that, Art. At the end, I do feel like the story came to a conclusion that, like, she had finally accepted her duality and who she is.
She falls out. I love it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Get up.
Yes. So, I mean, that stuff I thought was really, really good. It's too bad that they didn't spend more time with it, because I think it's really an interesting sequence of events.
Yeah. It's almost like we were talking before about why did they change things, and why didn't they just take the story and make a movie not called Catwoman. And I think that I have no problem with in an adaptation if you change things about a character as long as you don't in those changes eradicate the important things about that character, right? That's kind of that almost goes without saying. I don't know if the Jekyll and Hyde approach would take away from who that character is in the comics.
The relationship with Tom Lone, I was rooting for that. When he calls up and he's like, I mean, obviously she had a ton going on. I think that was something that it would have been interesting to be able to explore maybe a little bit further, because at this point, I would be kind of dismissive of somebody I was dating with everything that happened to her.
Yeah. Well, here she is with the cat lady.
Again, another talented actress. It's funny, they do have some talented actors and actresses in this movie, which it kind of cracks me up. And she's another one I wish they could have gone a little bit more into this character, a little bit more into who she is and where she comes from. Was she one of the previous Catwomans that we saw?
Ah, see, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I know. I wish that's something they could have done.
I'd have to watch this again to see if there's any implications of that.
She does seem to imply that either she was one or she has previously encountered one. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning they were talking about witches. Remember in the opening credits there was like that sequence where it was referencing witches. So I wonder if that's her background, or maybe she's like a soothsayer, she knows all the knowledge. Maybe she isn't one of them, but she knows the history of them and she's connected to them.
Well, she was a professor, and she was in a boys' club that basically wouldn't accept her. So she was another one of those outcasts. They do mention that in here.
Mm-hmm.
This is another example of like an element which I wish they had spread out through more of the movie. Like use this character a little bit more. Have her appear again later, or have her appear earlier. just to weave this idea through the movie, because after this scene, it's not really an issue again. It seems like, again, I've only watched the movie like 1.5 times, so there might be something I've
well, like that
missed.
opening sequence could have been her doing a narration.
Right? Yeah, that's a good idea. See, we're improving this movie as we go.
Yes.
I love the sequence where the boss, she heads back to work all unsure and the boss is chastising her.
Yeah.
It was great to see her kind of like do the Jekyll and Hyde, where at first she's the innocent person that we saw in the beginning, the innocent patients,
Right.
but then she quickly turns into Catwoman.
Well, you reminded me of the other thing. Why did they change her name? Like, what's the point of that?
You mean making her Patience Phillips instead of Selena?
Yeah, why isn't she Selena Kyle? What is the point of this?
Well, see, I think that's the identity crisis of the film. I actually like the idea of her being Patience Phillips, and they should stick with that. I guess my problem is, at that point, once they did that, you really should take the name Catwoman off of that. I think a lot of my issues would be gone if they did that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And then you wouldn't even have to have, the ears on the catsuit. She could just be, because once you put the ears on, then people are reminded of Catwoman, right? I think you could probably do it.
But you got to keep the outfit.
Got to keep the outfit because she looks good. But it's an impossible outfit, but, that's okay.
I loved when she's initially walking past the jewelry, and she's just got that, ooh, shiny type of,
I want the computers they have in this design office here. Got some nice computers here.
I like how her friends reminding her, like, hey, you're not working.
Yeah. But again, it's a cool part of this scene is you get this kind of cat funny moments, but then you get Sally fainting, which leads again furthering the story of what this the drug is doing to people, this and that, and her connection to it. Part of the reason why she's going after the big bad is to save her friend and to help people, and it's there's funny goofier moments, but it still furthers on the story, which I was glad to see that kind of stuff.
I'm reminded again watching the scene of how she reacts to the dogs. The reaction that she has to the dogs, it's like another example of how the script isn't up to snuff, and so Halle Berry challenging, delivering these lines, but she's a really good physical actress. I think that there's like a friendship between these characters that seems real. I think that the actors are doing a good job with it. I think
it's a good relationship. There is a strong relationship between Sally and Patience. You get a nice build between Tom and Patience. I do like the fact, again, these are 3 talented actors and actresses who can actually relate the emotion and get that connection, and you can feel like, I'm part of this group. I understand who they are, and that was something that again impressed me with the movie.
The problem I have with Benjamin Bratt is that he's an actor I've seen in a lot of B movies, and I think he kind of brings this movie down a little bit. I mean, he's good, but he's like not at the same level, I think.
Yeah.
Something, I don't know.
The scene
is that him though, or is that the script? Because we've said multiple times that Sharon Stone and Halle Berry have some like flubby moments, and we're really saying with them it's because of the script. So I'm almost questioning with him if it's not the same thing, because I think there's a chemistry between the two of them that works.
Yeah. Okay. And I think part of it is the script in this one, because I think when you get these moments of, like when Patience is at the school and you see her kind of being all shy and timid, and just the nonverbal stuff, the looks on his face, and just his physical presence as he's approaching her, and just when he's interacting with the kids in the classroom, there's some really cool acting moments that, again, I like him as a cop, and just his dealing with those kids was absolutely, for me, just spot on with dealing with that age.
Well, oddly enough, he's an actor who probably has more experience working on movies with a bad script, or like a B movie script, and so maybe his comfort level. It's
okay. Maybe, hold on. I'm sorry, I got to stop you guys right here.
Basketball food.
No, like that whole bit when she's looking at the ball like it's candy.
Yeah,
I don't care how hot she is, I'm running for the hills. Because she's already a little off. This is the point where he goes, all right, it's game on now. I know.
No, you don't want to play her. Bad idea.
See, here's the thing. I like this scene, again, because it shows just the playful physical cat, type of, that playfulness that the cats have, and just that goofing around. And I really enjoy this, the physical scene between these two. And again, also some really cool chemistry between them, where you get a little bit of the thing, plus you get a nice scene of Halle Berry. So, it's a win-win on all parts.
Win-win.
You know what, Jim, you're right about one thing. Like, it starts off strange, but then once the basketball sequence gets going here, I actually do quite like that.
Now, the super jump, I'm not too keen on. But, again, I was able to look past again, the special effects on the super jump.
It sets off a gravity problem that this film has.
Yeah.
There is a gravity problem in this film. There's multiple sequences that have gravity problems. I have less issue with that sequence, but I get what you mean, Jim. There are points in time, we're going to see them coming up, where she is floating in a way where it gets to the point where it's awkward. She's no longer, like, things that are supposed to be jumps are not jumps. They're her floating.
Flying, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to capture in a CGI object.
See, this is where they should have used wire work. The wires and all that stuff. Because with that, you can get a wire and a crane, you can get a more fluid jump, and it would actually be physically her flying through the air. And that would have given them a better visual look to it.
Do you need that, though? I guess here's my question. Would it have been better served by having just regular physical combat sequences, regular physical hand-to-hand combat, showing she's now a better
cat food.
Yeah, like a bumblebee tuna.
Hold on, I got to quick interrupt because this right here is leading to one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Again, just her physical acting, just her physical presence. Eating all the cans of tuna, yeah, that's kind of okay. But when she gets into it and she starts walking around her apartment, and just the way she moves and everything that goes on, I absolutely always have loved this scene. And it's coming up in like a minute or so, but it's something that I was like, man, this shows again wonderful physical acting and just that great presence that she can have.
When she's on the phone right now,
exactly.
She's just because she's kind of lost in it, and
she's got that movement kind of like of a cat, and just a little, just gentle, easy, just walking casually across the top of her couch, across that little table, whatever it's technically called, I don't know. But it's, just that physical cat-like movement and presence. I was like, man, that for me has always been a scene. When anybody ever talked about Catwoman, this is a scene I always say is a good scene.
It's really too bad that this movie is not better, that it didn't have a better script and that didn't pull things together more, because you could have had a really good movie out of this. You've got Halle Berry in it, and she's good in most respects in it.
The sad part is, like, that sequence is great, and it sets up what could be some wonderful potential that gets ruined by the CGI.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely CGI, I think, knocked this down a little bit. They could have done a lot more with it.
When she wakes up in the night, this is I gotta admit, this is one of my scenes I really enjoyed as well.
Yeah.
Because we get to see how the attitude has changed, and I wanted to see her go over there and take this whole place down. That part I wanted to see. Some of the dialogue could have probably been a little better for this sequence, but the concept and the premise behind it and the overall execution was pretty good. The dialogue was lacking a bit, but the rest of it I liked.
That I think that later on when she's like, "Thanks for the party, I had fun." I groaned again. It was a cheesy dialogue.
Yeah.
You had this really cool scenes before it where she's confronting this guy and she goes just all out, full on hardcore Catwoman on these people. I'm like, this is some cool scenes, but the ending of the scenes kind of like takes away from it.
When she knocks down the door, the shock and awe
Yeah.
was pretty good too. I like that she zoned out of it for a second because, see, that's one of the things I like about this. It's not that she doesn't remember. It's almost like you're denying that this really happened. It's almost like you're living your life in the background. Like she's still in there, but she's not in the forefront.
And here comes the whip. She discovers a whip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's kind of a nice touch.
Yeah, well, you need to have the whip for Catwoman. It's part of the who she is.
It's actually a really clever way to introduce the idea of a whip. It's the dispenser from a keg. It's the hose from a keg. It's like that's actually fairly clever.
Now, why would you stop your party after that?
Well, they ruined she ruined the speakers.
The speakers are shot. The beer is going to be no good now. I don't know. She used up all the beer, and I don't know.
Yeah. Also, the humiliation factor. You're this big badass guy, and he just got schooled by this little girl. That would kind of ruin his party.
I hope that cats are really good with
scissors.
Yeah, she.
Now, have either of you ever tried cutting your own hair?
No.
When I was
I have.
like in 8th grade, yeah.
I've tried it later than 8th grade as an adult. It doesn't work out.
It doesn't work. Yeah.
You know, so that right there in itself is a superhuman power that she can really cut her hair well.
I like how this scene is filmed and edited. Her on the motorcycle. I really buy that she's sort of interacting with the world using her super senses, kind of.
Yeah.
This was one that benefited from not being CGI. This was a good technique. This is exactly what I mean. You do stuff like this and it comes out and looks really, really good.
Yeah.
There's other things later where it's like maybe if you stayed more to the ground and gritty and more realistic, this film would have been so much better because
more practical effects.
Yeah.
Now there is something I do want to know. I'm curious about. Okay, so we get this cool bike scene where she's going through, and then when she stops at the jewelry store, she doesn't have her helmet on anymore. When did she take off her helmet?
She threw it off mid-ride. She's like, I don't need this. I don't know. But her hair looks good, so I don't know.
And
she doesn't have she doesn't have helmet hair, so
no.
I don't know.
Well, that's again part of the superpowers, and these bad guys who are breaking these glass cases, and there's no silent alarm. Where are the cops?
This is the thing that always annoys me in movies is when glass doesn't behave like actual glass.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that I try to not see, but I can't not see it.
Yeah, there's so many parts of this scene that just angered me because, one, no silent alarms. Two, they don't leave jewelry out in the cases. At night, they lock all that stuff up or they put it in a really secured area. It's not just these really expensive, one-of-a-kind jewelry aren't just sitting there with just a piece of thin glass preventing anyone from getting to them. That doesn't happen. I'm like, so again, I just got to look past that and enjoy the pretty decent fight sequence.
You know, the mask that she's in here, I think, is kind of nitpicking, but I think it's terrible. It's a terrible looking mask. Now, there's some CGI stuff in here which is starting to not work.
Yeah. This is where the beginning.
Yeah,
because there's parts of the sequence here that I really, really love, but it's when they start doing the motion of like her climbing and jumping that it's almost too. It's not smooth enough. Yeah. Like, the jumps are a little too long. The climb, the length of the climb or something just a little bit too long.
Like, why couldn't you get... I mean, there's plenty of great stunt
right
people.
Here.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's too much airtime.
It's like none of the stuff in this sequence. There's stuff later on which you couldn't do with practical effects or stunt work.
Oh, no, here we go.
In this... Yeah. In this scene, like, all of this stuff could be done with, stunt people and wire work and, just speed up the camera, slow down the camera, whatever. It could all be done, but they... And in its defense, the CGI stuff is well blended, but it doesn't look right.
No.
Because of the fact of its lack of fluidity.
And she knew the mask was bad, too. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes,
because
she leaves the mask.
because that work is not, that CGI work is not as fluid. You're right; it's seamless in the way that it's brought in, but the disjointed nature of the way that she moves, it takes you out of what could have been well put together.
Yep. Yeah, that's the human eye is really good at recognizing that kind of stuff, and it's really hard to replicate. It's incredibly difficult.
Now, her waking up in her house again, cool like visual cat stuff, and cool, just her presence, and again, it's it has that physical acting on her part, and even when she's going through the different jewels that are on her bed, I like those were some neat stuff there.
She's shocked, but she takes the time. That part I really, really enjoyed. For all of her shock, she still took the time to put on the ring, and she left the necklace.
Yeah,
and the necklace apparently was from Egypt, so that's a nice touch.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was her whole attraction to it.
Right. Yeah.
Her whole mystic connection that she has from the Egyptian cat people, etc.
Again, that's maybe an example of where they could have woven that stuff back in. But it's like reconnected that with the stuff from the beginning and the stuff with the professor lady, and I don't know.
I like that he starts to get suspicious of her, and because of her behavior, even the writing on the bag and the writing on the mug, the coffee mug.
Yeah, the sorry.
Yeah, I like that he's like, something doesn't feel right. Let me check, but then he's like relieved. This kind of stuff is neat. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but when I saw it on the bag when he was holding it at the scene, that was one of the bits that I liked.
And here's the funny thing. I agree with you. I liked it, but the way when we get to the scene where he's breaking down the signatures and all that, you don't get that just from just one single word in one comparison. That in depth that handwriting expert got, it doesn't work that way. I've dealt with handwriting experts, I've dealt with signature comparisons and all that, and you need more than just one single word to match up to get a character explanation and all that. So I like that he did it, and he went to the expert, and that's why he was able to overlook some very obvious red flags. So it was good that they had it in there. It doesn't work that way though.
Oh, so they do bring this lady back in, and she did see a picture on the computer screen. She's doing research about cats, and she saw Midnight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that cat was there. It was the same cat. So, okay. So, again, this is just me having only seen this movie 1.5 times. So.
Yeah, they do give some explanation on it. And this is where we'll find out about her, the cat lady, how she was a professor and all that stuff. So they do give us some background, but I don't know. I think we could have used a little bit more info on her, a little bit more info on who the cat people are.
I think the history part worked well. I do. I mean, I think that was a good part of the film. Here's the danger. We've thrown out a lot of things that I don't know that I disagree with anything that we've said we would have liked a little bit more of, but this would have been a 3-hour film if we put in all those things that we're talking about.
Yeah, well, you would definitely have to sort of restructure the story and make it more about that.
Yeah. Again, that could have been. We would have run into a risk of making the movie too long, or because that's a problem you run into with origin stories, where if you go too much into the past, you miss the present and the action sequences.
I was going to say at some point here we could have a conversation about what you would do if you made a Catwoman movie now, because you had the example of Batman Returns and this movie, and there's been a couple of, reimaginings of her origin in the comics or her background. And so I wonder if you were to make a Catwoman movie now, what would be a good way to go about it?
I think it would go to some of her current origin. Her current origin is very contemporary.
Right.
The idea that more she was on the streets, the background on the streets, because they haven't really done that on film.
No, they haven't. It doesn't have any of this mystical stuff, which the mystical stuff, it kind of begs some explaining, and you have to spend time in your movie explaining it. Whereas if you just make her, a product of the streets, and so that's why she knows how to fight. And then you don't have to explain as much.
Yeah, she's a cat burglar who's, again, she's picked up the fight here, picked up fighting here, picked up this here. It's, the bob and weave, stick and move. She's got,
right.
Because she's got the smaller physical frame, she's got to go for, instead of power punches, she's going for speed. That's where, the whip always comes in really nicely, where it gives her some distance, it gives her some offense, but there's also some defensive capabilities with it and whatnot. So that's why I always like the cat burglar style to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did think the lady set up really well, though. The idea that you're going to have trouble facing the desire and the instincts to be more free, to have this new lifestyle, which really is, I think, I think this is the most interesting premise in the film, and it's done really well.
Here we have CGI catwalk thing. Sorry.
Yeah, this is another one of those CGI moments. The new outfit looks good. Don't get me wrong, but
this might actually be her. But there's just like a moment later, maybe where it's not her. It's like a CGI Halle Berry.
Yeah, this part's okay. I don't have a problem with this part.
Yeah. This new outfit looks pretty good.
Yeah. Who would?
Yeah. No, but the point that you're making is great, Art, because this does, when she's in this, the walk there that we're referencing, the walk's good, but then now look at this. We start going into this CGI stuff, and when you're doing that, there's points where she's walking that it almost looks like she needs a bathroom break. And I hate to say it that way, but it's the only thing I could think of. I was watching it last night, and I'm like, oh, that's my issue. Like, she starts walking, and, like, there's something really wrong with the way that the walk... It's not the same walk that she has when she's not CGI.
Right.
And it's jarring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would much rather see this sequence done by, with wire work and stunt work and get. I mean, if you look at the kind of wire work and stuff you see in some Chinese martial arts movies, I mean, there's some brilliant stuff, and a lot of that's been worked into like modern action movies, even in the West, and I just think that all of that stuff becomes more compelling if it's done practically.
I like her memories coming through, like the repressed memories of the traumatic event that happened to her.
Yeah,
because that's very. I think that's a very true, real occurrence for people. You go through something that horrid where you have near-death experiences, and you don't remember. You're like as a defensive phase that you block that out, and she gradually gets that stuff back, and it's that Catwoman side, like seeking out revenge. And I think this kind of adds to the whole, we can eventually resolve the Jekyll and Hyde when we start to embrace all facets of ourselves.
Right. No, yeah, there's an interesting thing. It's kind of buried in here, but yeah.
It's funny because the bad guy, the goon, the killer, there's some stuff that I didn't notice, through the couple watchings, and he's got some pretty good, just presence on himself, and just, he is your run-of-the-mill goon, so he's not high-end, caliber. There is you can see there's a difference between a thug and a killer, and this guy is a killer. And you can see just how he handles himself, his presence and whatnot. That shows that yes, this is a stone cold killer. And I think that's kind of neat that it was kind of lost on me in past viewings.
I have to say, I'm always, I don't know, this is just like one of my pet peeves, but fancy dance clubs in movies and on TV shows always seem just ridiculous to me. I lose interest immediately. It just seems like hyper designed, and I know that there are places like this or kind of like this, but it kind of takes me out of the movie. I kind of roll my eyes.
But we have Halle Berry in a very nice outfit, so it's okay.
Yeah.
So again, I don't have an issue with that. That's one of the scenes I don't have really an issue with because again, she's moving wonderfully. Great physical acting.
The problem is, there's a point to what you're saying, Jim, and let me clarify that. Like when she throws the whip up there and swings, it's very fluid. It looks like it's her. Whereas the CGI sequences lose some of that. Like, it's too bad that that kind of stuff didn't become more of a part of this. Like, this fight, even the way it's kicking off right now,
Yeah.
I liked it because, again, it was some simple stunt work, and it just makes the whole thing seem to work. You know, this is stuff that clearly Patience wouldn't have been doing beforehand. Sometimes you go a little too over the top trying to make her into something that you don't really need her to be.
Right. You don't need her to be superhuman.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you really don't. It reduces the character if you make her superhuman, I think. Both in terms of the problem of the CGI not looking real, and then it takes you out of the movie. But there's nothing about Catwoman that requires her to be superhuman.
This worked. This whole sequence right here worked. I'm like, wait, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with her using the claws on his tongue. You know, this kind of thing, I don't know that we needed more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, nice physical fight sequence between them. I did like earlier on how while they're throwing down, while he's punching and she's blocking and moving, she does snatch up the gun. That was a cool, just physical, you know, that again, something that Catwoman would do. A couple of the scenes with her going back to the factory. Again, it has to happen and you have to do it, and the whole framework and just all the how this plays out is it had to happen in the movie because, you know, she's got to be blamed as the villain and yada yada whatnot. But there, I don't know. I was like, oh, come on. This is just, it was one of those things where it was just so obviously going to happen to her, and just how everything played out with the janitor seeing her and this and that, and oh my God. And I was like, come on.
Mistaken. She's accused of murder now. And it's like a wrinkle that it's the kind of a wrinkle that you see in movies all the time, and it gets old.
Now, did the villain know she was going to be there, or is that a part where it was a happy accident?
Well, the killer is the one who killed him, because that's why when he shows up at the bar, he says, "Hey, I was here all night." Because the guy that Halle Berry got the information from. Mm-hmm. So part of me would like to think he gave up the information so easily to her because, you know, she would go to the actual factory, and because, you know, he already knew the guy was dead, so maybe it wouldn't be any skin off of him. She would maybe take the blame. I want to think that. I don't know if they really thought that in depth with the bad guy or not. But, you know, it does work, and she does get the blame. So
it works. It makes sense. I don't know if they did intend it. I don't think that they make it maybe clear enough, but maybe they didn't want to make it clear. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an evil cosmetic.
I like how the police station in really big letter says police. Usually, just in case you didn't. Yeah. Just in case it wasn't clear.
I like her relationship with her ex-boss. How that would cloud her judgment, make her think, "Well, I know he's evil. I worked for him." Yeah. That part of the film I actually really quite enjoyed.
And even some of the early sequences where he's berating her and Sharon Stone's like, no, she's a good kid. So right there, it's laying the groundwork for her to trust her, but not him. And I thought that was really awesome.
Well, she's good at her. She's good at what she does. She wasn't defending her. She was defending the product they could get from her.
There's more handwriting comparison going on, Jim.
Yeah. Again,
this is an incredibly advanced computer system they have here. This is insane.
I'm glad they did this, because this was right here was solid red flags that any decent cop would have looked into and would have questioned. So they're giving us an answer why he doesn't think this, gives it plausibility. It's just according to the real dynamics of handwriting analysis, this is completely false. This is as bad a physics as we had with the falling Batman who floated to the ground on steel doors. It's completely off of what is handwriting.
No, wait a minute. I know you're connecting two things there. There's so much, like, her floating and stuff like that is way worse than that. There was more realism there. There comes a point where, wait, this is not a police drama. I'm actually going to defend this movie a little bit on that end. If there's things you can get nitpicky about in this film, I don't know that that's one of them.
I'm not really getting nitpicky on it. This was a statement of fact. It didn't take away. I liked the sequence because it explained why a good cop wouldn't bust her. or why he would actually still trust her, go on this date. It gave us the reason not to do it. It just was completely inaccurate, and that's just so I like it. Again, I liked the scene but didn't like the scene, and I liked it more than disliked it. But it's just something I had to say just because they were so horribly off on it.
It's not completely inaccurate, though. It's that they didn't have enough. I know what you wanted more. You wanted them to analyze like a book that she wrote or something. But
that's what you need to get a true character analysis of a person. You need more than just one word. Now, comparing the two signatures, and you can on one word you can get okay analysis saying that it's not the same person, but even
guys,
that you can't say.
You guys are talking through the Ferris wheel scene.
Actually, yeah.
about her potential war and peace.
Right. But what's weird is this is just a thing that happens. It doesn't have anything to do with the bad guys or anything, or at least not that I'm aware of.
This does build his suspicion, though, because like he walked into this date saying, "Okay, I can trust her now," and all that. But now she's doing these amazing things again.
I like how he's trying to be the hero.
Yeah.
But she's the one that eventually saves everybody.
It does set up the premise, though, why he wouldn't see her do this. Because he's trying to be the hero over there, he doesn't see how quickly she does what she... And here's a great example of, this is why you don't need CGI. That was every bit as effective as CGI is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's a very good point. Cranky.
Yeah. Again, did we really need this sequence?
Yes. I'm actually going to say, I actually like this sequence.
It's kind of standard superhero stuff, which we haven't really had yet. Mm-hmm. The hero saves a kid.
Yeah, it does show she's a good person. It does show the hero. It does show that the cat isn't all bad. There is good to it. So, because that was pure Catwoman that was coming out for the rescue.
Right.
It also shows here, look at him analyzing afterwards. It builds this sense of it's the police officer in him. He's suspicious, even though he's having this wonderful time with her.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to believe it's her, but it adds another wrinkle into it. And I actually quite liked that. I liked that it wasn't always an obvious thing that would draw him to her potentially being Catwoman.
Yeah.
It was stuff like that we got to see play out in real time. I actually quite liked the Ferris wheel sequence.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because this movie actually kind of needs it. I don't know if there's any other instance of her like rescuing or interacting with a normal person in need.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's all just bad guys that she beats up.
Or her stealing stuff, yeah.
Right, stealing stuff.
Yeah, so yeah, we
did
need to show that yes, she's a good person.
Right.
So
she saves a kid on a Ferris wheel, no less.
Yeah.
So.
Now, her breaking into the Hedera household and going in and going after him and all that, or getting information. I dig this sequence just because it's her investigating, her going after the information. And again, it furthered on some of the previous stuff we saw between her and Sharon Stone about why she would trust her.
I like how Sharon Stone is in her pajamas. I don't know why, but I love this. Sorry.
And the whole golf club sequence, it's a burglar in the house. We don't get the reveal here about her skin and what's really going on with her, which I like. I quite like that too. But even when they were going down the stairs, you see the CGI there? I don't that
you didn't need it.
No,
right.
That's an example of where it was a good sequence up until that moment. That took me out of it. Then we go back into this chess playing between the two of them, and I quite like the trade-off here.
Yeah, well, this is two actors who can actually act, and they can do that physical presence, and there wasn't any over the top, and you get some great visuals, the nonverbal just body presence, and just even like when Sharon Stone just kind of giving up, oh, my husband, yeah, you can see just she was really selling it. I like that. I was like, man, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I have to say, the first mask was terrible. This mask is not much better, I don't think.
I actually like the first mask better.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because this one has too much forehead.
Yeah, it's what's weird is that's a decision. Like, they had designs, they had a bunch of sketches, and they chose this one, and they chose it for some reason, and I want to know what the reason was.
It's a more full cat head.
Yeah, but it does make her head look... It's really... elongated, and I'm not sure if it. I'm sure it seems like there's a better choice that could have been made, but more CGI, Jim.
Yeah.
Sean, sorry.
Yeah, this is really. I mean, some of those floating moves there. Then it goes to this, and I'm fine with this. I thought that was a cool visual, like the mirror look and everything like that. That was cool.
They're calling in for backup. Everything that was some really neat stuff, and the fight sequence that's going to come up later between her and Tom is awesome. There's some cool but they throw in that CGI where it's not needed. They could have done this with wire or with stunt work. Get somebody who does that parkour, the street running. That's the kind of. That's how they should have handled some of these physical scenes.
I think that there was a decision made. There was a rule. When they were making this movie, a memo went out that said all transitions have to be done with CGI.
MICKEY Hallie!
Those are very mouse ears, yeah.
This looks very Mickey Mouse Club right now.
Very Mickey Mouse ears,
wow. See, now I can't see it and not see that. So.
Now I'm going to start calling her
and CGI. More CGI.
that CGI moment I actually didn't mind.
That was a good jump down to the stage. That was a nice jump.
But then this stuff on the stage, a bunch of this is CG. That's
why?
Yeah,
because it's disjointed. It's almost like there's weird pauses in the middle of the movement. That
clearly the rule was all good scenes have to be divided by a scene with bad CGI.
What it was is all of that was put in place so that way we could have the sequence of her climbing the wall. I don't know why that was necessary.
Right. Yeah. It's overindulgent is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a movie that really by its nature should be very street level. With the exception of Sharon Stone having super skin, you really don't need that part's fine. You really don't need her to be anything but street level because actually it adds more weight to the battle with Sharon Stone.
She's not Spider-Man, right?
Right.
Actually, it's interesting to bring up Spider-Man. The Spider-Man movies were before this, right? The first two, at least. I think the third one was 2, maybe. But in that, Spider-Man, the advantage of Spider-Man is that there's no skin exposed, there's no hair, there's no face, there's no little things hanging off of him, and it's much easier to make that look right. But with this costume, it's complicated. There's skin exposed, and they're trying way too hard, I think.
Spider-Man was in 2002. Spider-Man 2 came out the same year as this.
Okay.
And Spider-Man 3 was in 2007.
Okay. A little bit later than I thought.
So this had to compete with Spider-Man 2 on some level.
Yeah, and that's maybe a problem. I mean, some stiff competition.
Mm-hmm. But again, it's funny because as we're talking, I agree with you that about the CGI ruining it. But these sequences between Patience and Tom, and just the banter and the fighting and just everything that's playing out was absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see, especially hey, I got a girl. What does she know about me? That great banter, and we talk about just issues with scripts in previous scenes and all that stuff. That was some great script writing. I love those sequences.
Yeah, I did too. It was that's the sad part. There's moments where this is pretty good. And it goes back to what Art said, I think, right at the beginning about this would have been a great made-for-TV Sci-Fi Channel movie if they took certain... And here's the thing. They wouldn't have had the budget to do some of the CGI.
Right. Well, and then they wouldn't have, and we'd all be much happier.
Yeah. The wife stalking him in that moment. Because we all know at this point that she's the actual big bad. And
she's the brains of the outfit.
Yeah.
Well, have we seen that she's the big evil?
Yeah, because she was there when she was flushed.
Yeah, she was there when she flushed. Okay, yeah. But even then, I like just the power of Sharon Stone and just how he's just a sniveling Pepsi, and it just you see him just kind of back down and yes dear, and it was a really cool power. Just I like this, man. This is awesome.
She's pretty good in this. I have to say, watching this a second time through, I think that she's good. I think that she's a good choice.
The bit where he hit her with his hand was horrid. Because it seems like the hand never even comes close.
Yeah. Yeah, they needed to work on the slap a little bit better. That, again...
Maybe that's where they needed the CGI.
Or, just, I don't know. I think it's hard for, when a male actor has to slap a female actor, and, it's that natural instinct where you don't want to hit a woman, and you don't want to do that. So you just hold back automatically. So I think he held back a couple inches from her face as opposed to coming right up to the face. But again, it doesn't. I'm not going to complain too much about that.
Here's where
she's putting on makeup and drinking a cocktail.
Yeah. But it's Baleen.
It's the evil makeup.
Evil makeup.
They needed to show us her caking that on, though, like it was frosting. Because, up until this point, we'd only seen her dabbing like a little bit on. We really needed to see the depth of how much she uses this. She became like an addict to it.
Well, that was something they explained earlier on, that it has an addictive property. So, again, they're sticking to what they laid out earlier.
I like the sushi bit with her.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really funny.
This is like when I give my cats the canned cat food. They all come running. It's good stuff. Fish.
Well, I like the dynamic between these two, that friendly, the friendly banter.
It's funny. I'm trying. There seems to be there's a chemistry between the two of them. Whether or not it's her carrying him, I don't know. It just this part seems very comfortable and it works. I think it's interesting when it's surrounded by things that are rather uncomfortable to watch.
Yes.
You see these sequences and it's like, wow, there's some moments in this where there's a makings of a decent film. Again, none of it is an actual Catwoman movie.
No.
Right. Yes, there's this very little actual Catwoman in here.
But that's where I think the Sci-Fi Channel thing really works, because they would have made their own original character. And this honestly could have probably bled into being a comic book on some level if they'd try to just embrace the original idea instead of trying to tie this unnecessarily.
Yeah, I would love to. I should go back, and it might have been a good idea to go back and sort of read about the making of this movie and why it happened the way it did.
Yeah, I wonder, because you think about it, they've already had a couple very successful comic book adaptation movies, and they must have seen by this time, if the closer you get to the actual adaptation, the better it is.
There actually is a book out about the making of this movie.
Really?
Yeah, it's what were we thinking? The Catwoman story?
What were we thinking? The Catwoman story. Oh,
you completely fished both of us in. I'm like, really? Wow.
What were we thinking? Well, you know what's weird? Hold on a second. I just discovered something. Batman Begins came out a year after this.
Wow.
So
Really?
they were in development at the same time,
Wow.
Clearly by two different development houses.
Two different people.
What did you think of the whole rain sequence where she wanted to run undercover with that?
That's cute.
It's cute. It led to a nice little underneath the thing and kissing and the love story between the two of them and all that kind of, oh, that's nice, it's again, it's you get the moments between the two of them, the loving, the tenderness, the physical connection between the two of them that works in a Catwoman movie, works for these two, and just. But again, it's I was like, this is again, there's some cool sequences, but the one part on this I do like is when he gets more clues as to who she is.
The scratch on his shoulder, but also I think the behavior prior to this.
Yeah,
it's funny, in multiple watchings I noticed that more.
And he finds the claw.
Right.
He also and that's the thing I like, the fact that he doesn't look the other way. This right here is a true cop. He's not going to look the other way, and this is his character. He was able to explain the sorry away. Well, now he's got another clue. Onto it, the Ferris wheel stuff, the moments there. He's like, hey, there's something else not right here. There's something else not kosher. And the glass and all the forensic evidence that he's pulling in. I do like the fact that they did go into that with some of the police stuff here. They actually make him a real cop. Make him a real detective. He's not just some papsy. He's not just some idiot out there. He's an actual good guy and good at his job. And I was really happy to see that, because that's one of my big pet peeves, when they make the cops incompetent.
I like that it was not in isolation, though. All those things leading up to the claw made more sense why he would take the glass with him.
Yeah.
She doesn't have time either to really register any of this because of the phone call.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Timing. I was just reading a little something about the background of this movie. It's essentially the result of some plans to make a Catwoman movie as a spin-off from Batman Returns, essentially. It was originally was going to have Michelle Pfeiffer returning as Catwoman, but got pushed back, I guess, for various reasons. And at one point, Michelle Pfeiffer had to pull out because of odds and ends of things, and Ashley Judd was planned, and then she dropped out, and then Nicole Kidman, and then Halle Berry. Yeah. Just one of those movies that took a long time to get off the ground, and it's too bad it wasn't what it could have been.
I wonder how many script evolutions it went through.
Yeah, I'm not really seeing any reference there. The director seemed proud of the changes that they had made, the things that we're complaining about. It's effectively not Catwoman.
Yeah.
You could take this story, this thing about the roles of women and the makeup and that whole thing. You could take that and put that in a Catwoman movie, but it's all this extra stuff that.
I think she works better as an original character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they didn't give her the name Catwoman, this would have been a better movie.
Because the duality of her dealing with this animal side of her, right, I think is quite interesting. If you're not looking at it as a Catwoman movie,
I'm sure that there's probably a character in Marvel or DC who actually has this kind of an origin, who you could attach this to.
I think that's part of the problem, though. Like, I think if you tacked on anybody, take anybody, let's go Tigra from Marvel, just for an example. Yeah. If you're still tacking that on to a character that really, they so divorced it from whatever Catwoman is, that they should have just embraced an original concept.
Right.
Because I don't know, like, how do you look at this and go based on the characters created by Bob Kane? I don't get it.
Yeah. There apparently most of the cats used in the movie were from animal shelters.
Wow. Yeah,
these were not like cats, owned by like a cat wrangler or something. Sorry, I'm just reading a bit of Wikipedia while we talk here.
Now, the setup for Patience, I did kind of like. Again, that was a really cool usage of the villain and just her. You get those villainous rants sometimes that go too much, but I liked Sharon Stone just saying, "Hey, I got you." And now here you go. Tosses her the gun as the cops walk in. She's seen dropping the gun, and then as Patience is out there, she's seeing her boyfriend saying, "We're coming after Catwoman." And it's like, oh man, this is awesome.
Let's not ignore her pulling on that jumpsuit too. She took that from the house. Quick thinking. Right. I really liked that we see the kind of escape thing going on with her. It didn't pay off for her, obviously, as we're seeing right now, but I thought that was neat.
Yeah. And again,
I like how he's standing there in profile with the gun behind him.
Yes.
That's kind of a nice touch.
Yeah, well, he's going for an arrest, and this is, we had those all those great banter moments, and you've got this very cool, somber moment between the two of them, but you still have this connection. You still have this, where you feel bad for them. You want it to work between them, and you're just like, oh, but you want to yell at him, dude. She's being set up.
The sequence there too, I like that he acknowledges the fact that she could get away if she wanted to.
Yeah.
And she acknowledges the fact that, I could too, but I'm not going to. I liked the way that played out between them. That, like, at this point, she has been so overwhelmed by... She's been accused of murder twice that she hasn't done.
Yeah.
Right. Apparently, guys, there was a video game, a Catwoman video game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Who knew?
Yeah. It's the sequence of her in jail when she's being interrogated. You know, normally I don't like interrogation scenes because they don't follow how you really handle it.
Right.
But because there's been such a personal rapport between these two throughout the movie, I love this scene. And I do love the fact that she's got just the tear running down her face and just the emotional, and you can see him getting caught up in the emotion of it, and it's like, man, this is some good acting.
Yeah, I think the more you talk about it and watching it again here, I think that these two actors work well together.
Yeah, this was some good casting between the two of them.
I think where it gets disjointed is just some of the odd choices that are in between it. It takes from something that could have been an interesting relationship story between them, because there's a great foundation here, and certain things play off very well with the two of them. And that's what makes me sad, because I really liked that relationship. This jail cell sequence where she's sitting here looking at the guard and she hisses at him, that part was a little over the top for me, but I do like where this went. I liked the idea of, her being in the cell, and then they do some cool stuff later with her sneaking out that I thought was neat.
Yeah, and it's, another one of my favorite scenes is her breakout scene, but we do get some cool stuff with Tom here, and he's just, it's the conflict, but it's not even just the conflict of, this is someone he cares about. He's like, just the pieces don't completely fit together. There's just that little something annoying him in the back of his head, and he's got to put his hand on it. I did like the fact that we get, again, seeing that he's a good cop. Now, the Midnight to the Rescue. Again,
Midnight to the Rescue.
Yeah, again, we talked about it, but I do like the fact that, Kat shows up for the rescue. And even, a little bit later on, she's going to have that little playful moment of, Lassie would have brought me a key. It's, there are some cool scenes in this breakup. This is, again, another one of those sequences that I talk about, when I talk about this movie, saying, hey, there are some good parts to it. And this breakout scene is one of those ones that I wish had gone just a little bit longer. Maybe having her show her sneak out through the police station or do something like that.
I don't know. I kind of get what you're saying, but then there's a part of me that's like, what we get here is there's a nice build to her breaking out of the cell, where, you see that there was this girl that was conflicted and just wanted to stay because she was so dejected. But when she sees that sign and sees Midnight, it motivates her again. Then we get the scene where she sneaks out. I don't know what more, because they do show her having to sneak, acknowledging the fact that she has to get out of there without being seen.
Oh, yeah. And, we have it, but I don't know. I think it would have been kind of neat showing her actually sneak throughout the entire precinct, and really they could have done a little bit more of the physical stuff. But again, it's a good sequence, and I always talk about this scene as being something I enjoy. But it's just part of me always just wanted just a little bit more. Just
how would that have furthered the story, though?
It wouldn't have furthered the story, but I think it would have just looked cool visually. This is purely me on I think this would look cool. The
problem is, at this point, I think they thought that they already had it looking visually cool. I think that's part of the problem, though. I think there was too much focus on visually cool and not enough focus on the story elements that were working in this film. I think they should have spent a little balance. Yeah, they should have spent a little less time on the visually cool. Because, like, her popping out of the window there, okay, that was neat. That was enough. Her getting out of the bars, I thought that was neat. That was enough. We want to move. Let's start moving it forward. It's almost like sometimes those scenes derail. And I'm not saying the sequence you're talking about in particular, Jim, where if they added that, it would have ruined it. But there's certain sequences where it's like there's almost a little bit too much scene, too much action, too much jumping.
Too much scene. Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Because its editing seems to be wrong on the pacing on this. They seem to derail a pace. Like, after this sequence, we do want to jump to this, because this is the big send-off that, like, we've been trying to prevent all movie. Yeah. And it's actually happening now. And the boyfriend shows up to investigate because he's like, you know what, the police officer in me, which is what you were talking about earlier, Jim, this is what I wanted to get to.
Yeah. And it's funny because I agree with you. I did love this scene, especially because she's sitting there, accolades. This is the guy who caught the killer and everything, and it's selling her as this wonderful villain. And we get some great villainous rants, but it's again one of those problems I always have whenever there's a police scene. I recognize there's some cool police action and some, they're trying to show that this guy's a good cop. So I'm very pleased with that. But just his tactics, just some of the stuff that happens, I'm like, it wouldn't hold up in court.
Well, we're reaching a point in the movie where we're approaching the climax, and that's where all that stuff tends to fall apart.
Oh yeah, and,
the realistic procedural stuff.
Yeah, and you got to have that in the movies, and you get there's some cool sequences with her taking out the trucks.
Yeah, I like that.
And I ignore the fact that again there's a midnight deadline. Well, there is no midnight deadline in the real world. A chemical, if they're planning on any type of pharmaceutical or makeup or anything like that, it's in stores like a couple weeks before the rollout date, not hours.
Not if you're an evil pharmaceutical company.
Oh, true. Okay, yeah. So you got the whole evil that does change everything. So
you're talking about prim and proper business, not an evil pharmaceutical company.
Distinctions, important distinctions.
Now it's funny though, seeing the dynamic between Tom and Sharon Stone as compared to his dynamic with Patience and everything.
Right.
Because again, it's the evil female and the cop who doesn't completely trust her, and he's fishing for something. He's trying to get something. He's trying to figure out who exactly is the good guy, who exactly is the bad guy.
She doesn't completely trust him either, and that's actually, I'm echoing what you're saying here. I actually quite liked the scene because she doesn't completely buy into him either. Even though he opens up the doorway, she sort of plays around with it to feel him out, but he's feeling her out too. She really doesn't say enough that would convince him she was the bad, would be whole evidence enough that she was the big bad. There's nothing here that's really admissible except when she shoots him.
Yeah, so that's the thing. That's where she goes too far. If she would have just let it, he could have walked out of there. Anything she said wasn't admissible. There's nothing that he could have used against her in court or even hold against her. But because she is the evil bad guy, because she's the villainous who can get away with murder, she feels I can shoot a cop. I laugh because of the inaccuracies, but I did enjoy that because it's the tried and true villain of the I can get away with killing a cop kind of mentality.
I disagree with you.
A problem I have with this movie is sort of, I'm trying to think how to explain it. I think that overall, the Sharon Stone's character as a villain is kind of weak in that here at the climax, she doesn't really have anywhere to go with this, really, in terms of what's her goal here?
I blame it all on a Bioline headache.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
One of the things that I forgot about, when I was rewatching all these times, were just the amount of fight sequences that go through at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
You get the couple of the goons, you get her going up against the goons, you got Benjamin Pratt doing some stuff, you got Sharon Stone doing some fights. This ending had some really cool boom, 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 multiple fight sequences. And I kind of like the fact that we were jumping around there was a couple bad guys she had to take out. There's a couple bad guys she had to deal with.
You gotta have some goons before you hit the big boss because the goons make you look good, and then when the boss can take you down, you get the audience. There's like a give and a take there. You build the hero up, and then the main bad guy can take them down a notch.
I quite liked that Tom wasn't incompetent there, even though he was shot.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a big fan of that in films when all of a sudden the police officer becomes incompetent. In this case, he's got skills, and we got to see him have a moment there. That was a good choice.
And he had an equalizer in the large metal object he's hitting the guy with. So, again, he's got a bullet in him. He's lost a lot of blood, so he should be weaker. He should be slower, so he needs that little extra edge. It's not cheating if you are doing it to survive.
It's not cheating.
It's an equalizer,
Her banter when she does this isn't always so great.
Yeah. the cat when in full Catwoman mode, sometimes the banter does you kind of lose it a little bit.
It's the script, and I think that there's some points here where as much as good as Halle Berry's physical acting is, I think occasionally she's doing too much with her head. Mm-hmm. Kind of, it's like weaving around a little too much.
Yeah, and sometimes when she does the power, that voice kind of does.
Yeah.
And you can see she's trying to really sell the cat, and she's really trying to sell that. So it's like, I don't know. It's funny because I talk about just negative on the script and negative on the dialogue, but then a second earlier we're praising the dialogue in the banter between Benjamin Pratt and Sharon Stone, or Halle Berry and Benjamin Pratt. So there's times when the script and the dialogue was just so perfect, spot on, and then there's times when they kind of lose it, and you're just like,
well, when you get into the action scenes and the fights, I think it just becomes too easy and too tempting, to rely on like one-liners and the cliched dialogue, between the big bad guy or the bad guys and the good guys. It's really easy to write that kind of scene because you don't no one expects a good script usually in those scenes. If there's a lot of fighting going on, you can throw in some one-liners and
Now, something I am kind of a fan of. Mm-hmm. And it's when the hero does get a little bit of a beatdown going on them, and they got to knuckle up and just push through the pain and just fight back. And it's that hero digs deep type of mentality. And I was so glad to see it in a female fight sequence, because a lot of times you don't get, we don't get to see them be really super tough. We don't get to see, because they're Hollywood wants to keep the femininity and wants to keep the beauty of Halle Berry. They don't want to show, hey, she can take a punch and she can deliver a punch. And I was glad to see got that in these.
That reminds me of one of the things in my notes here is that the two main characters, but depending on how you depict these things, but the main character, Halle Berry, a woman. The main bad guy, a woman. The main character's best friend, woman. Like all of the main character, her best friend, and the main bad guy are all women. You have these Benjamin Bratt's character, who is like the male lead, and then you have like a male bad guy and some male goons. This movie's on its way to being. It's already a female-focused story and movie. I think it could have gone more in that direction if it were a little smarter, if the script were a little smarter or something.
Yeah. The ending of Sharon Stone's character. Here's one of the things that I do need a little bit of help with. Mm-hmm. She's got the nearly invulnerable skin. She's taking metal pipes to the face, no problem. But when Halle Berry scratches, that's when she cuts into the face, and everything starts falling apart for her.
Well, what was that, cracking the shell? Because it almost seems like her face has become like an outer shell of some sort.
Right.
I don't know. I'm with you, Jim. I'm not saying I'm a fan of the storytelling thing, and I'm not saying I've justified it on some level, because I'm not a fan of that either. They had to somehow get her face.
They had to get her messed up and have her realize, and the vanity of Sharon Stone is what his are undoing and all that. So there is, I understand the story element behind it, but I always just questioned why, how was the scratching able to cut into the face? But the metal pipe, she took a metal pipe to the face and it didn't have a problem with it.
Well, but that was diamond that she was able to cut glass with.
Oh, that's right. That's right. She cuts glass with it earlier.
You know what? You just saved it for me.
Woohoo!
I'm 100% cool with that explanation because of the diamond. Mm-hmm. So she's able to cut through, scratch whatever the nearly invulnerable skin became because of the diamond.
Because she took the two fingers earlier and cut out that hole in the glass and then pulled it out with the two fingers.
Well, and they're also apparently really sharp because you can't. Yeah, because of the cutout in glass thing, you need something. You need something hard and sharp. Huh.
What did you think of the ending where she didn't wind up with him?
Yeah, I kind of like that. I think that's a nice touch.
Yeah.
It keeps it from being the obvious ending.
Yeah,
and it's kind of more realistic. I mean, like, this cop's been through a lot with this woman, and it's not been all good.
Yeah, it was a good choice. It's funny. There's a bunch of moments that are gems in this. outlined in a movie that is just so not Catwoman.
Yeah. And I did like how he gave Patience the opportunity to get back in the jail cell. So, like, hey, if Patience is back in the jail cell, there's no way we can pin Catwoman on her. Gave her that chance to go back into doing it, and gave her the chance to actually, have freedom in a life. So it's again, she's got this dual life where now she's embracing who she is. Yes, she's good.
Wait, Jim, hold on. This is my favorite part of the movie.
Of course it is.
Nothing beats the end credits.
But
Sorry,
there's like a CGI thing here too that irritates me. But
in the end credits?
CGI?
No, I'm kidding. He said.
Sorry, I'm going. Really? I don't see mine.
I think his because of where it paused on him. I think he was slightly behind us. We were actually in the rolling credits, which is really funny when you're saying the CGI here bothers me, and I'm like, so you're Detective Number 2, Peter Williams.
That guy really bugged me.
Yeah.
That guy.
That's really funny. Yeah, the CGI at the end, you're right, Art. It was like a sequence that I was enjoying up to that bit. And the problem with the CGI in this, it's so blatantly not real. She becomes not human. And here's the funny part. If I look back at I was a big fan of the original Superman serial where they mixed. I was
just going to mention that.
Where they mixed animation with reality. Right. But we were in an era there where you couldn't do the flight effects like you could do them later on. Mm-hmm. So they chose to use animation there. I'm like, okay, I got it. But you clearly in those moments knew that wasn't really that actor flying off. Right. This is doing something now that like there's no excuse for in 2004 for them to do that kind of choice. How could you not look at that and go, guys, I got to say something. I know we're making this choice to make her seem more animalistic and stuff, but when we show that, it doesn't look like she's a human being anymore.
Well, the example you use, the Superman movie, the Superman serials, where when he flies, it's a cartoon, it's a drawing. It's at least in that case, there's no pretense. It's clearly they're not trying to make it look like the actor per se. It's just this is what we're doing. This is the conceit. There's no pretense. Whereas here, the pretense is that it's supposed to be her, and I think it's overly ambitious. It's maybe a misunderstanding of how complicated those kinds of shots are, a misunderstanding of how much that costs, how much time it takes, and it may just be an instance of their eyes being bigger than their stomach, biting off more than they can chew. I don't know.
Look at the end credits. The director had 3 assistants. Yeah. They were the ones that went around telling her, but just don't tell him.
Don't tell him. Just act like that's going to be all real, and we'll put in the stuff later.
Just don't tell him.
But like we said earlier, it's impressive how the CGI elements are blended with the live action. I think that's done really well.
Yeah.
But the CGI itself doesn't work. It doesn't look like the rest of the movie.
It's almost like it seems with every CGI sequence, when it initially starts, that first few seconds of when it starts before you really get into the meat and potatoes, that part seems seamless. But then it's almost like you zoom in to the CGI.
Right.
And we're instantly taken out of the rest of the film. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I mean, there's like this stack of flaws in this movie, and that's one of them. It's if you could peel away like a couple or a few of the flaws, I think you'd be left with a much better movie. I think you take out the CGI. I think you kind of uncornball the script some. Maybe a little bit of some different casting. It's almost like they spent their casting on Halle Berry and Sharon Stone, and then they had to go, okay, who can we afford now?
Where is this on rewatchability for you guys? Because for me, this is out of the 3 that we did, this is the one I'm least likely to watch again. Not because I hated it. There's no lead into it for me. Like the other films, the Superman movie, for example, while I liked this one better, I'm more likely to watch that again because when I watch the other Superman movies, the completist in me, because of Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor and Christopher Reeve, will want to watch 4 because of the bits that I liked from it. The Batman, the same thing. If I start watching the Burton films, I'm probably likely, if I start doing a marathon and I watch the Kilmer one, I'm probably going to watch the Clooney one just because of the Alfred bits that I liked so much. This one, if it's on TV and I happen to turn the channel, I'd probably watch it, but I own it, and I don't see myself going, wow, I really need to watch this over the other movies I own. but where are you guys at? Seriously.
In order of movies I would rewatch again. It's actually different. It depends on why I'm watching it, who I'm watching it with. I would like to watch this movie, Catwoman, with my wife and maybe my daughter. My son might be interested, might not be. But because it has a female lead and, like I was saying earlier, 3 of the 5 important characters in this movie are women.
Yeah,
I think that's an important thing for my daughter to see, and it's pretty much a PG movie. I mean, I can't remember what the rating was on it, but there's very little that's offensive here.
PG-13.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting because there is some blood. Yeah, there's some bullet shots and some blood, that kind of thing.
Pretty tame for PG-13, though, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really close to being a PG movie, I think. Quest for Peace. That's something I would happily watch again myself. I think the kids might enjoy it. We've watched the first 2. We've never gotten around to the 3rd and 4th because they're kind of embarrassing in some ways and have long bad sequences in them. And Batman and Robin, I always get Batman Forever and Batman and Robin confused. I would watch that again. I would watch it with the kids just because it's ridiculous and it's so over the top and so crazy. I think of the 3 movies, I think that's the one I would enjoy watching again the most, just because it's so bonkers.
Yeah, that part, I think. I don't know that I wouldn't watch this one again. I think when you mentioned, Art, that there was like somebody brought it up or I'd watch it with my family, I would watch this with somebody who hasn't seen it because I don't hate it. I just don't see myself having a lot of motivation to make this a go-to movie.
Right. Yeah.
And this is not a go-to movie for anybody. And again, it's of the 3 movies, to me, this was the best movie. Yeah, it's not a good movie, but we had a lot of stuff that was like, that's a pretty cool moment. That's a pretty cool moment. And it's weird because as we were recording this, we had them running, but I had the volume off. So I was just looking at it. I wasn't hearing anything. And I think I may have enjoyed it a little bit more without the sound on, because there were annoying parts where sometimes the voice or sometimes a little bit campy that I didn't hear. So I was just getting the visual stuff. Now,
it actually works better without the sound. You're right.
Some of the visual stuff with the CGI that we talked about annoyed me because I was like, but then you get some neat. You'd get a bad visual and then a neat, moment. Yeah, bad. It kind of like balanced out. Now, rewatchability for me. Only way I'd probably ever watch this again is if someone said, "Hey, Jim, put that in. I want to see how bad it is." That's probably the only way I would do it. Me sitting around my house, I'm not going to go, "Hey, let me put in Catwoman." Now, I'm also saying that exact same thing for the other 2 movies. I'm only putting it in if someone said, "Hey, let's watch that." So for me, all 3 movies have 0 rewatchability. Now, if this was on TV and we were at one of those favorite scenes I like, I would sit, watch it through that favorite scene, and then probably see what else is on.
Right. Okay.
I think we're in different places as far as the rewatchability of this film, because I don't know that I wouldn't watch it again. I can't honestly say that. Jim, you mentioned something that I think is pretty critical. There was no dialogue. And that is a part that I had major issues with, the dialogue in this. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I'm like, wow, I feel differently about this film than I thought I would. We clearly did not hear some of the one-liners that really are painful.
It's funny because there was, and we're saying the dialogue was bad and the writing was bad, but there was some really cool, dialogue moments, between, Halle Berry and Benjamin Pratt. They had some cool, some moments between them that really built up the relationship, and there was some good, good and bad, moments. You get some good, banter between the good guys and the bad guys, but then you get some really bad banter. So it was one of those things where it had its highs and its lows.
And the scenes between Halle Berry and her friend, I think, work pretty well too. So there's it's interesting. The character moments, like where there's a relationship, like a friendship or romantic relationship, those scenes work. The other scenes don't work as well. That's actually kind of interesting.
So we survived.
We survived. We did it, and we did this in under 3 hours. So that's impressive. I mean, granted, it was mostly focused on a 2-hour movie or however long it is.
It was 1 hour and 45. I think this was the shortest film out of the ones that we did.
Yeah. First time I saw it, it didn't seem that short. It seemed kind of long.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Are we there yet? Are we getting? I don't know.
Come on.
5 more minutes.
Of the 3 movies, I want to go back and watch Quest for Peace again. That's the one that I would probably, on my own, if it was just up to me, I would watch that one again.
Why?
Well, just because of some stuff that Sean brought up about the scenes, the scenes with Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeve and Gene Hackman. All of those scenes work really well.
And you could fast forward through Nuclear Man.
Yeah, man, why not? Yeah.
Well, that is true. Yeah, you can just do,
I'm going to make a fan edit for you, Jim, that only has Nuclear Man.
The all Nuclear Man, just a constant loop of Nuclear Man. And his electric fingers. Which is going to be my new band's name. Nuclear Man and the
Electric Fingers.
Electric Fingers. But
that's awesome.
Of the 3 movies, if I was just going to throw a movie in the DVD player, when I have some friends over or some family over, I think it would be the Batman movie. Yeah, just because it's goofy.
Are we brave enough to do Steel? Here's one thing I'm noticing.
I don't know.
the movies have gotten progressively shorter because now we got Steel from 1997, which is 1 hour and 36.
Yes.
But here's the thing. From Art's comment, this movie seemed longer to him than the other movies we've done. I wonder if Steel's going to seem the longest.
The longest road. Oh man! See, now I got to find that movie, watch it, and then watch it again with you guys.
Yeah, let's have a let's have a Steel viewing party.
I'm in for Steel, man. I'll watch that again.
Yeah, let's do it. Just work it into your schedule.
Yeah, we'll make a plan to do Steel. We'll trade off mails back and forth and work out a time to do Steel. Just because if we've done this much bad DC cinema, I want to hit one. I have not. This is the one I have not seen. Steel. I completely missed out on that one. Oh well, probably a good thing, but
you didn't miss much.
What we need to watch after that.
What
is the Justice League TVB movie?
Oh, Jim, have you ever seen that?
I've never seen that.
I've never seen
it.
I have bits of it.
Is that available?
You can find it online somewhere. Well, see, now I'm going to look it up and see. Yeah. Unless someone else it gets to it before me here.
Wow. Yeah, we'd have to try and find that somewhere. Because it's not it. Like, I'm like on iTunes right now. Nobody's selling that.
Justice League TV movie. I got to find out about it. Okay, Justice League of America TV film, 1997. It's listed on IMDb. Mm-hmm. 1997. I thought it was a little earlier than that. You can watch a trailer for it. Justice League America, JLA. Hold on a second. I'm about to figure out something here. It looks like they might have it on Daily Motion. 86 minutes. Interesting. So it says here it's 86 minutes long. Do
we want to wait till it's on Blu-ray?
Yes, you want that top-notch quality. So, I mean, you could probably find like a torrent of it. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's it doesn't seem like it's available on DVD, which makes me wonder who owns it. Now, there's something on Daily Motion that's called Justice League America JLA TV pilot, but it's only like half an hour long.
We'll have to look into that one. Let's steal for sure, because we know that we can definitely, because the serials and things. We mentioned the Superman serial that was actually really good for the time, and it actually, surprisingly, I've watched it recently, holds up pretty well comparative to some of the things we've watched recently.
Well, and it's interesting. Your standards for that kind of stuff is different, and just the style and the sensibilities of that time period is so much different.
And black and white is a lot more forgiving.
Right. Yeah.
So there's certain sequences that work there because they're in black and white. Art, as always, I want to thank you for coming on the show. We thank you by punishing you, but I want to thank you for coming on the show. And we have your links in our show notes, but is there anything you want to shout out right now that I know we've talked about a lot in previous episodes, but
I don't have anything that's that's out recently or coming out real soon. So I would just say, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm just Art Lyon. If you look that up, you should find me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Tumblr a little bit, and you can always go to my blog, which is wordpress.artlyon.com, I think. And I also have a slowly but surely ongoing series of articles over at DC Infinite.
Well, as always, thank you very much for everything you've done for us on the show, and we'll be talking to you soon about Fall TV.
Yes! Awesome.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutron!
I want to once again thank Art Lyon for joining us. We always have such a great time talking to him. If you've been a long-time listener, we have a rich history with him talking about his own work, but also talking about media, and Art's a wonderful guest to have on with a different perspective about that. So I'm thrilled that he's going to be joining us for a fall TV preview and coming back again later as we do Steel. So it's always great to talk to Art. Sponsoring this episode is once again DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, remember to pick up that Lego variant bundle. You can get all the books, $74.78 regularly, 45% off, only $41.12. And that's over at DCBService.com. At InStockTrades.com, they just moved, and because of that, they've got this wonderful double discount. They normally do 5 books and 1 kid's book. Now they're going to do 10 regular books and 2 kids' books, 50% off. Amazing books. Just for example, Harley Quinn, Vengeance Unlimited trade paperback, $19.99 regularly, 50% off, only $9.99. Snoopy's Thanksgiving hardcover. This is a $9.99 book, 50% off, only $4.99. You start bundling those things together, you can get a lot more books, a lot more reading. I'm a big fan of that. And InStockTrades.com is your source for hardcovers, trade paperbacks, those collections that you're looking for. Orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. And they have DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com have been a wonderful sponsor of many podcasts. So please consider supporting them because they support the podcasts that you listen to. I want to shout out our website, RagingBullets.com. That's the place to find out news about where the show is headed. I like to post when I start editing the episodes, approximate release dates for the shows. I like to keep you informed. I value the fact that you take the time out to listen to our podcast and find value in what we do. So I like to communicate with you on where we're at, and that's the place to get that information. I do have that set to automatically feed to our Twitter account. And I also have that set to feed to our Facebook page. So those are 2 great places if you want to get information about our podcast, whatever you like in social media. That's the way to get to us. We have a Facebook group that we share with DCinfinite.com. And the community there is just absolutely amazing. It's grown so far beyond our podcast, and it's really due to the amazing people that are there. So I'm proud to be a part of that community. And it's bloggers, podcasters, fans of comics, and just fandom in general. They're safe discussions, they're open discussions, and we welcome anybody. So you have friends who are comic fans, maybe they'll listen to our podcast. Please have them consider joining, and have them check out our website, DCinfinite.com, and all the wonderful podcasters and bloggers that tend to post in our discussion group. It's a great community, and like I said, I'm proud to be a part of it. We are also available on Google+. I have personal pages on both Google Plus and Facebook as well. I tend to post from my personal accounts, so if you want to get me, that's the best way to do it, and feel free to add me. I love having friends of the show on there, and I love to talk comics and really anything else you'd like to talk about. So please feel free to add me on as a friend. I'd love to chat with you. Our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. I have a few voicemails actually that are waiting for our next episode. They're going to be on there. I haven't had a chance to sit down with Jim. I'd like to have Jim on so that way Jim can respond to them as well. So those will be on next week for sure. Please feel free to call in. We're going to do a voicemail catch-up as a part of our next episode, so please feel free to join us for that. Besides our show voicemail on next episode, we are going to start talking again about this Future's End event that's going on. We're going to share some of our favorite titles and have some casual discussion about some of the things that have been going on in some of the other books. In Future's End, it's been a cool month, and very interesting titles have come out, taking a look 5 years into the future of the DC Universe. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that event on our next episode. We will see you then.
Bye!
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can two grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.